Hello everyone, I'm back. I know this has been a very long time. It's actually been 4 months. My last podcast in English was in early May, and now we're almost mid-September. Well, we actually are mid-September because I'm recording this on September 15th, 2017. Things got a little bit busy at the end of the spring and beginning of summer, and even when your kids are big, because mine are 15 and 20 years old, well, summer break is disruptive. And even at that age, they still expect you to take care of them and drive them places and pick them up. And well, that's pretty normal, but it kind of disrupts your schedule, which was what happened to me. Today today is the first day since beginning of May that my daughter is back to school or back to university, because in France university has a very long break for summer. So she had some stuff to finish up, but her classes ended at beginning of May, and today is her first day, kind of introductory day, and on Monday her real term starts again. So I'm celebrating this by recording again a video in English. I hope to be a bit more regular in the coming months. I'm planning on a kind of recording schedule where I record 1 week in French and the other week in English, but I know already that this schedule will not be as regular as I would hope, because every time I have a show, things will kind of slide forward for at least a week. And actually, next week I have a show coming up here in Lyon, and I will talk to you about that a little bit later on. Well, see you in 3 weeks or so. But before I say that, let's talk about crochet and yarn and things we all love. So there's no point in me trying to catch up on what happened for the past 4 months, because that's a third of a year. So I don't think that would be neither interesting, nor neither for you nor for me, and it wouldn't be very would never be complete anyhow. So I'll just talk today about my 2 latest crochet designs, about a book, and about something that I'm working on. So first, this one came out before the summer. It had been in the work for a long time, but it's finally finished and the pattern is published, and I don't really know. I will try to put it on, even if it's perhaps not the best color for what I'm wearing today. So this version is a pretty large shawl. Okay, so it is semi-circular, but because of the size, it works like a half-circular shawl. And as you can see, it's a leaf motif. The basic leaf motif is a quite well-known stitch pattern, and I used it for the first time many years ago now, almost 10 years ago, in my arrow stole, which you can find on Ravelry and also in my web shop. This version is worked in lace weight bamboo perhaps. This is a yarn that I have been selling for several years now, and it's actually well, it's at what I think is quite a sweet spot. Actually, in between a classic finger weight and a true lace weight. This is 100% bamboo viscose, and it's at 300 meters, so 330 yards per 50 grams. I have worked this with a 3mm hook, which is just between a US C2 and D3, I think. And the one on the mannequin behind me, it's the same pattern, worked in a true lace weight this time. A blend of wool and silk that I also sell, at least in my French web shop. And that one is a classic lace weight at 400 meters, 440 yards per 50 gram. This one is smaller, as you can see. It's still quite a nice size. The difference comes, of course, from the difference in yarn, but also because this one was crocheted by a friend of mine, and I think she crochets a little bit more tightly than I do. What's interesting, well, I think it's pretty. That's an interesting thing. I hope you think so too. But I want to talk a little bit about the construction, because as you can see, the leaf pattern doesn't start immediately at the top, because up here we have a very long crescent shape, which is worked in this way. Oops! In this direction. You start at one point and then you crochet in a kind of Bactus manner, if you remember the Bactus shawl or scarf. This one is worked like this, and then without cutting your yarn, you work a row of single crochet, US terms, I always use US terms, along the curved edge of this crescent, and then you start from there and you work down like this. And this took me some time to figure out how to handle the increases, and it's still something I need to conceptualize and work on. But well, this works. But actually, it wasn't calculation; it was just trial and error, which is why it took quite a long time to complete this. And to have it tested and written and charted and all of that. But I think it's an interesting way to adapt the shape of crocheted shawl, especially. I think you can adapt it to other projects as well, but especially on a shawl, because so this is a very narrow and long crescent. You can also imagine an elongated triangle, for example, a more rounded crescent. And of course, this is only double crochet in US terms. It's pretty stretched out because I blocked this rather heavily. But you can also, of course, design a shawl incorporating a stitch pattern here, making it larger, thinner. I think this is something that could be really, really interesting to continue to work on, and do let me know if you use it. I find in crochet, if this was knitting, it would be quite logical to work short rows and to work the entire shawl in the same direction from top to bottom. In crochet, of course, short rows are possible, but can sometimes make for a not so smooth edge. And so I think it's smoother this way, working simply double crochet in this direction. So that's Siebold Siebold. It's called so because it's blue leaves, and there is also already a crocheted shawl in my web shop designed by Eclat de Soleil that is called Blue Leaves. So this name was totally out of the equation. It's blue because when I started to work on it, it was the color I had the most of on hand. And I like it. It's a soft, nice blue color. But there are not many plants with blue leaves. But one of them is the Hosta Sieboldiana, so named after a botanist whose last name was Siebold. So Siebold it is. Now, what did I do with this one? Yes, so that's the second design I wanted to talk to you about today. Pyramidal. Very hard to show it, it's so big. I hope you can see the pyramid shapes. Or if you're less graphically and more organically inclined, you might see trees growing and the pyramids being just the background. I'd already started on this last time we recorded. It's it's pyramidal. I hope that's how you say it in English. Pyramidal in French. This one was much quicker than the Siebold because so I had started it 4 months ago, so and I'm launching it today, 15th of September. So that's pretty quick to me because it's a large shawl. When you design a shawl, you always you never go straight from start to finish. Because even as a fairly experienced designer, even after extensive swatching, what you see in your head might not exactly correspond to what you get in reality. So sometimes you have to rip back and start over. That's what happened with the Siebold shawl. That's what happened with this one. And then, of course, you have to write the pattern in a way that someone else can understand, because individual pattern notes are not a pattern, that's for sure. You drawn the charts. I had the pattern tested. I did a photo shoot with my, simple photo shoot with my daughter. So now it's ready to meet the world. And this is, I think I discussed this in a previous video, this is a pie shawl, which means that the increases are made on specific rows, and you can see it quite clearly, especially from this point on. This is an increase row, another increase row, and a third increase row. So you end up with quite a huge amount of stitches, and that means that you have a big shawl that you can curl up into. But since I worked it in US travels, it's also soft and airy, and you can definitely scrunch it up around your neck if you want to wear it like that. I worked this in with one wool of Skepies, hello Caroline, a wool yarn. And the idea was to use almost the entire ball. Of course, I left a little bit to have some margin for individual variations in how you crochet and how much yarn you use. The idea was to use the complete gradient of the ball, which is not so easy, because 1,000 meters is a lot of yarn to use in one project if you're not making a blanket or a dress. I'm currently translating to French the beautiful dress made by Lilla Bjorn in the same color, using two balls of this yarn. And I might be repeating myself, but this was the reason why I decided on a pie construction for the shawl, because you use more yarn with this construction. It also has other advantages, of course. It means that between two increase rows, you work straight. So it's very interesting to incorporate a large scale stitch pattern, as I've done here, in one of the sections between increased rows. What else can I say about that? Not much. I hope you like it. You can, of course, use another gradient, a kit of gradients, or simply work the different sections in different colors. So a little bit here, more there, even more there, and quite a lot in this part. I cannot really estimate the quantity of yarn you would use in that case, but it would be interesting. So that was my design since last time. I wanted to talk to you about a book that you cannot read because it's in Swedish. Some of you, I know some of you read Swedish because you watch my podcast in English while being Swedish. I'm not sure that this will show up in the right direction because I see it very clearly in the good one, and perhaps it will be mirrored for you. However, it's a book that I bought during my vacation this summer in Sweden, and I just started to, of course, I leafed through it, but I just started to look very closely at it, and it's very, very interesting. It's a Swedish crochet designer called Maria Gullberg, Gullberg, sorry. I'll try to put her name under the video, try to think about that. There is one book by her translated into English, which is a book on tapestry crochet, and now she has made a book on granny squares, and this must very rapidly be translated into several languages because it's such a fantastic, interesting book about this, you know, this icon of crochet that is the granny square. So it starts up in a relatively traditional way with this project. However, please note the assembly and the finishing with tiny granny squares. These are assembled point to point to create a jagged outline that's made even more interesting by these tiny granny squares. And in this project, there is actually more than one type of square. It's not very visible in this picture, but Maria Gullberg has a very, here is a picture, a larger picture of this project with different types of granny square circle. And Maria Gullberg has a very graphic design sense. That's absolutely fantastic. And in this book, she has worked on different techniques to change colors within rows in a granny square to get this kind of effect. Or look at this. Look at this. This is granny squares. Look. Isn't that fantastic? So creative, so unusual, and with her specific design sense, which is also influenced by Swedish textile traditions. I'll just show you this one. Granny squares. Who would have thought that? Isn't that fantastic? I just love this book. I would want to look. I'm going to stop now because I'm going to show you the entire book and you will be bored. But isn't this just wonderfully creative? Of course, I would like to make everything in this book, which will not happen. I would like to have my house filled with blankets worked from Maria's patterns. It's impossible because I don't even have the time to crochet my own ideas. But I will definitely try some of these just to see how she works with the color changes and get a feel for her creativity here. So, virkad mönstrig magi. In English, I would call it the magic of the granny square, and it is magical. So, if you have the slightest possibility of understanding Swedish, because you do need to understand the written parts to fully understand the instructions on how to change colors and how to handle different colors while you work. There are, of course, charts, very clear and well-made charts. So if you want to have a go without understanding Swedish, why not? And if you have any connections in the publishing world, please alert them to this very, very interesting book. So the theme of granny squares leads me to what I'm working on right now. I'm working on one super confidential project that I cannot show you at all because it will be part of an advent calendar which is sold out. It's an advent calendar which unites, I think we are 16 or 17 French or French language designers and yarn dyers participating in this project. I think I'm the only crochet designer in there, but it's a very, very interesting project. I will talk more about it when I can. But otherwise, I'm working on this. And this is a very, very small part of this project. Look at this. Fabulous! I can say so because I'm not the one who crocheted this. As I said, in a little more, no, almost exactly 1 week's time, I participate in a show in Lyon. But this is a show where I actually participate in the organization with a group of friends. And I'm responsible for the yarn bombing. I did a project like this. We had a show like this 4 years ago. And then I asked people to crochet spider's webs. That worked out very well. So this time I want to do something different. And of course, as I said previously, the square, the granny square or any square, be it especially in crochet, is quite iconic. But there are, I don't know if in this one, no, this one is all crochet, but I have also received knitted squares and they work beautifully too. So I'm responsible for the yarn bombing. I put out a call for contributions in late May. Yeah, I think in May. Well, late spring, early summer. And I have received around 450 squares. It's absolutely incredible. So, so 450 squares contributed. I've been working with a dozen friends to pre-assemble modules like this one, I'm currently working on smaller modules, and I will be trying next week to put this all together into something spectacular. So it will not be a big, how to say that? I will not use them all in the same place, because I'm going to use them spread out all over the venue where we are organizing this. I will try to take photos and post on my social media and blog, so you can see how this turned out. I feel quite responsible, a bit nervous about I feel responsible to make all this work shine. The response to my request for squares was fabulous. I almost cried once or twice when people sent me big boxes of squares. Thank you to everyone who participated. At least one of you, I think, will watch this video in English. And thank you so much for the time, effort, and expense to ship put into this. Have you seen this? Isn't that fantastic? It's a toy head in the square. So I have several large modules like this. I'm working on smaller ones, and I make sure to show you how it turns out. So don't hesitate to follow me on social media. I'm Annette Petavy everywhere, on Ravelry, on Instagram, on Facebook. I mainly post on Instagram and Facebook, so that's the best place to follow me. I have been talking for not much less than half an hour now. My internet connection has been very slow these past few days, so if I want this video to come up before next year, I better stop now so I can put it up on YouTube. I'm so happy to be back to podcasting in English. I'll make sure to be back soon. Take care. Bye bye.